Hello, this is Positive Vibes Enterprise, Goodwin. This is Michelle Ronquillo.
Hi, everybody.
And the subject today has to do with the reptilian brain. And
yes.
And one of the reasons I was thinking about the reptilian brain lately is, I heard about it being related to survival, and I heard it being related to panic attacks and all. And then I said, hey, I'm basically focusing very much on that part of the brain when I'm doing my meditative exercises. In other words, I'm doing this type of shoulder movement. I'm massaging the back of the neck, which is which would really put the focus on that part. And I actually focus on that part, the back of the neck, which is very close to where the reptilian brain is.
Yes, and when you deal with fight or flight, panic attacks, it literally takes all your blood and puts it into your muscles to get ready to fight. And that's an interesting fact in the research is about fight or flight reactions, dealing with the reptilian brain, the survival brain. But one thing that we want to mention is that in the spiritual sense of the survival brain is thriving. But to understand it, Tom is going to tell a little bit more about the reptilian brain as what he found out in the researches.
Well, it has to do with a lot of the things that are automatic that you don't really have. You don't have a lot of control over it. Some people may think you don't have any control over it, but when it comes to breathing, you have quite a bit of control over it. Digestion, you may have limited, but you may have more control than you actually believe over by your moods and so forth. Circulation, of course, you control that by exercise and things, but
yes.
It's automatic, but you can do things that can alter things like that. And it has to do, of course, she was talking about it has to do with for freeze,
yes.
Which means that it's sort of like the part of you that an emergency or something comes up, your brain will shut down and it'll go into, I got to do something now, I can't think about it, and it's going to do automatic reaction.
Yes, and this also includes emotion. It's triggered by emotion, but it also goes out of freezing or fight or flight in the emotional state, and that is why Tom's training exercises, his meditation walks, and this is a perfect reason, an example for how you can take control in these moments. And when it's coming on, the fight or flight, the panic, the out of control chaos emotion, you can already know how to take control by the breathing and by focus.
Okay, one of the things I'd like to say is that it's triggered by emotions, where the limbic system is the center of emotions.
Yes.
You got to think of cold-blooded animals. They're not necessarily, they're kind of cool and calculating. They're not really that emotional, but they're triggered by emotions, you could say. In other words, the limbic system is actually where the emotions come from, and then they trigger the reptilian brain. Now, even a reptile is going to have a little bit of a part of the brain that's emotional. It's not going to be all reptilian brain. Actually, they just know that it's majority reptilian brain and has very little out. But it's going to have a little bit of emotion too.
Yeah.
So you could say it has a very tiny bit of a limbic brain, so to speak. But they're not. But they're sort of like categorizing it based on what plays the humongous role. I mean, they're not going to. So like what I want to get back to is when you're doing the meditative exercises and you're doing that, you got the breathing, you're controlling the breathing, and you're doing the rapid breathing. And a lot of times people will say, "No, I'm not doing the rapid breathing. And I can do that, and I can maintain quite a bit of control because I've trained myself to do that rapid breathing and fill my
Excuse me.
And do the hyperventilation in rapid breathing and get myself in a state that would be similar to fight or flight,
right?
Where you get carbon dioxide build up in your brain, and they say don't do deep breathing when you're in a panic attack. That's what I read, because it will it'll mess you up even more because it actually adds to the hyperventilation.
Yeah.
But so that just tells you how much breathing plays a role in it, and that's when I'm doing my meditative walking. I teach beginning people to breathe in with one step and out with the other, but I breathe in and out with each step. I do the rapid breathing, so I'm conditioning myself to deal with emergency situations, intense situations, because I've always been into crisis training. Now you can tell by the way I'm talking, I'm sort of like bringing it out, the type of hyper energy that I can handle and not lose control of.
Right.
And you can develop that kind of crisis training so that you can handle situations without fight or flight messing with you. And you could tell the military probably does quite a bit of that type of physical training that will, it'll get rid of the people whose reptilian brain explodes and does crazy stuff. It'll actually get rid of those people.
Yeah,
and
in the basic training, they'll be, seen for what they are of the fight or flight, getting locked in and not being able to break free. Because that's one thing that Tom mentioned, is that when you get so locked into this fight or flight survival mode, reptilian brain, you get locked in and you can't see the change, the behaviors or the habits.
And then things like trauma that you've had in the past will be locked into your reptilian brain, and you'll see a spider and you'll jump in the air and and you know what I mean, is it'll have an immediate reaction. And you can see that the military doesn't want you to have a reaction to the wrong thing, so they're gonna work at controlling the reptilian brain. And a lot of controlling the reptilian brain has to do with body movement. That's one thing I read. And what do you think I'm doing? I'm doing the type of training where I'm walking, where I'm moving while I'm training myself. And so, in other words, I'm doing things. And the thing is, when you're dealing with science, they analyze and they figure out, how something works. But when you're dealing with the spiritual, what you're doing is your actual actions. You're doing behavior. You're actually putting intensity into your body, and you're testing the limits of what the human brain can do, and how much you can program the brain. So that's a totally different area than science. That's more the area of psychology, and psychology is very much has very much of a spiritual focus to it.
And I think that right here it's important to mention that as you are practicing the higher evolvement of the reptilian brain and releasing the fight or flight into thriving, and that's really the spiritual side of it, is literally thriving through, you stand in a place of strength, you have motivation to handle any crisis or anything that's coming up your way, because you are in control of the emotions and your body, physical, spiritual, and mental, that you can overcome these issues.
So you could say the limbic system, which is in charge of the emotions, can be taught to control the reptilian brain. So you master your emotions real well, and since the reptilian brain is triggered by emotions, you get control of your emotions, then you can get control over your reptilian brain, you can get rid of the trauma in you. And then, like with me, I basically am real good when it comes to emergencies, if it's a real emergency in front of me. Meaning you don't want to be reacting to things that aren't real emergencies, like a spider or some kind of image. And a lot of times, because of trauma, you'll respond to certain images that will set off fight or flight, where it's not an image that really requires that.
For example, if someone's afraid of dogs because they've gotten bit when they were little, every time they see a dog, they have the fight or flight, and they're afraid because they remember the trauma of when they got bit by the dog. However, in the logical state of spirituality, you can understand, that feeling, now the emotion of afraid is because I was bit by a dog. That was then, and this is now. Not all dogs bite. Not all dogs are going to react to where they're going to bite me. So in the logical sense of pulling in the emotion of what you feel with the logic of the reality based of what you're seeing will also help you gain control and overcome the panic.
But I mean, if a dog is coming at you and growling and acting really vicious, then you have a reasonable, then it's reasonable to think that it's probably going to bite you if it's coming at you with that kind of attitude.
You learn that from getting bit by the dog, but you don't have to go to the extreme. It's not necessary to go to the extreme. It literally is there to show you the awareness that, oh, that dog growling and that dog acting that way means that it's aggressive, and you can handle it that way instead of panicking out and thinking it's going to attack you.
Well, I mean, if it gets to a certain point, you're going to automatically react anyway. Right. In other words, you don't have to have all these triggers in you. Your body will sense danger when you train yourself meditatively.
Yes.
And you get rid of the trauma and all. You're still going to have that instinct for survival. It's just not going to be waylaid. It's going to know. It's going to know that this dog is violating your space and growling and has a very good most likelihood of biting you, and you better respond.
Right.
But you'll do it in a more reasonable, rational way.
Right.
And so you'll probably think a few seconds, and then it'll go zap because your thoughts will have said, I don't know any other way to deal with this, so you'll probably have to do something to try to get the dog away from you instinctually.
Yeah.
But but if you're trained, you're going to be thinking, what other alternatives do I have to deal with this situation of this aggressive dog? You're not going to go immediately into a panic. Because even though, they say in the past when a lion was attacking, you had to act immediately, you always have a couple of seconds to think of the various alternatives you have, especially if you are a person that thinks about those things ahead of time and has it programmed into you. In other words, if you're going out and you know there's lions about, you're going to have programmed into you many different ways that you're going to have to react based on the lion.
Yes.
And you can use your higher brain, and you can mix that with your emotions, and you can figure it out, what you have to do that's appropriate. In other words, we do not have to act on a very instinctual level, because our brains can be reprogrammed to work more in a holistic fashion. We don't have to be controlled by the primitive part of our brain and have trauma or past experience mess it up. We don't have to have that happen. And actually, the limbic system part of the brain, which is the middle part of the brain, when you have three parts, you have the more primitive reptilian brain, you have the limbic system, which is in the middle, and then on the outer part of the brain is the part that the prime, that has to do with the new brain, they call it, by some source. Of the source I have, which I'll put that source in the comment section that I'm using.
Yeah, and check out the resources that Tom got this great information from. Yeah,
and so the new brain, or the neocortex, that has to do with primates, and that has to do with thinking, imagination, logic, creativity, reasoning, speech, all the higher functions. Now, the limbic system, which is the emotional brain, the mammalian brain, actually, you think of cats, dogs, and horses. They're not really into heavy thinking or any really higher forms of mental activity, but they're very emotional. Yeah. And they're very capable of reacting on an emotional level in a very refined way emotionally, a lot of them.
Yeah.
So in other words, you've got to think of cats, dogs, and horses, and primates are the new brain. So you have to think of primates and humans as the ones that have the most development in the neocortex, or the new brain.
Yeah.
So and then you have to work all these brains together. But the reptilian brain is the one that tends to cause the most problems with us. You could say a lot of addictions and compulsive behaviors are controlled by the reptilian brain. And you basically need to get control over it because it has to do with so many basic functions, and you don't want to have any of your basic functions messing with you and causing trouble for you.
So watch for those triggers, look for those awarenesses, look for those things that you can fix with your breathing, your digestion, your circulation,
your gut.
your gut. Trust your gut, and start really understanding the inside of you and the workings of you, and that is the first step of evolving to make a difference in the world. Is take care of you, know thyself, and get familiar with your reptilian brain and what it's doing.
And it's not surprising the reptilian brain has so much to do with the body, because it's when you're dealing with the neck area, that's the connection between the body and the brain.
Right.
So if you're dealing with the brain stem, it's naturally going to be very much body related.
Nerves.
And the reason I went very much into meditation using the body was I realized that you breathe different ways in different emotional states.
Right.
So that's what motivated me to decide I'm not going to just do the deep breathing that was that's so structured into all forms of meditation. I'm going to do rapid breathing and all different types of breathing, and I'm going to get so that I can handle that breathing really, really well, and I can get really hyped up and I can still handle it.
Yeah, that's really important to try out Tom's meditative trainings and see how it will help you improve, because I know I have improved tremendously since I've done the trainings.
In my life, it's been one constant crisis. So the fact that I went into meditative type crisis training and developed these techniques is not surprising, because my attitude was, if I'm going to have one crisis after another just because of my limitations, my being differently able the way I am, I might as well be proactive and be training myself to handle them. They're going to come anyway. Why should I be out of control? I got to be in control of this. So I've been developing this training for ages based on that approach.
And in the spiritual, I've been working backwards on the experiences of how to control crisis and trauma situations that I was encountering in my life, and knew that I had to either figure out how to survive in a positive sense, or have my body explode with disease that I put in it because of the environment. And I decided to evolve and push from a very young age and learn in the spiritual when no one else really understood it. And I met Tom years and years later. But the fact that we had such in common, because we work and walk daily in the spiritual, and how we can evolve through the things that we both experience in our lives, a lot of trauma and a lot of things that made us stronger and made us capable of sharing things that we've learned through our experiences with all you, and to improve and to better Tom's wonderful techniques. And please check out his recent astrology explanation. This is a great system, and especially with the new times and people looking for new answers, this is one of the reasons why Positive Vibes Enterprises here is to give new information based on spiritual knowledge that is not out there yet. It's still on the frontier land of spiritual understandings of what we are trying to start as a movement.
And I'm so much into the physical spiritual connection, and the physical spiritual connection is what astrology is based on.
Yeah.
On a bigger scale, but then the physical spiritual connection has to do with the body and the spirit, which is in the limbic brain, basically the emotional center of the brain. So the spirit is going to have its focal point inside the brain.
Right.
Meaning the spirit's not something that's controlled by automatic behavior like the body is. Pretty much, it's gonna be very much connect. I mean, even though the body it's not all automatic. So much of the body is automatic, but the spirit is going to be more connected to the whole brain, and in the human being, it's going to be very much connected to the new brain.
Yes, and it's important in spiritual experiences in life that you take your gut intuition and use it for the positive good of yourself and others. And that's why, as a psychic medium, I teach people how to train their own gut intuition and how to be that psychic intuition, understanding what the universe is doing. With Tom balancing the spiritual, he's He's so good at understanding what we need to plug in spiritually to the body. And that's why we decided on the reptilian brain topic, because he is always focused, moving, constantly pushing for evolvement, and wants you guys to subscribe and share with your friends so we can get this word out and show people that there is people out here helping others help themselves to a healthier understanding of the spiritual and the physical, and how they interact, and how science and spiritual both interact together and confirm each other.
Well, one of the things I've been dealing with empaths lately, and there were some people that were trying to say, well, through empaths, they don't have any signals or any clues or anything. They just pick it up with nothing. And what I say is, you almost always pick up clues. You don't even know. It's almost like your reptilian is picking them up or digesting them without you even knowing it.
Exactly.
So in other words, science has always becomes a part of it. So it's almost like you can't take science out of it.
Yeah,
so if you say an empath does not get triggered, they just pick it up without being triggered, I think they're almost always triggered by something.
Yeah,
they just don't they don't realize they're being triggered. But the fact is once they're triggered, they are able to tune into emotions so much more than anybody else could possibly do.
They're just more sensitive of those triggers as well.
So they're able to use that trigger to make a lot stronger psychic connection.
Exactly.
Because they have to have a trigger to put them in the right direction, and once they get the right direction, they can pick up so much more. So science is going to tell you, well, it's all intuition. And then spiritual people, like I say, they try to say it's all spiritual, and it's so blurred, the lines between them, you can't separate them very readily. In other words, the spiritual person will see it from one side, the scientist will see it from the other side, but it's actually working very much together.
And you need the deep confirmations of truth in the spiritual, so it's not flighty-dighty or just created imagination. When it comes to the spiritual, you confirmate yourself with the science that is already out there, and believe me, 100% of the time you'll find it. And there'll be theories. It might be a theory, but they're still out there. You need to look for reliable sources, like Tom always tells me. You need reliable sources that isn't out there and not sure of. And if there's not reliable sources out there yet, then make your own theories and investigate and go as close as you can, because that's what we need. Pioneers and frontier people out there on the spiritual front line, making spiritual more advanced in our society. We need it so bad.
And one of the things I wanted to say is, I'm so much into developing, like meditation and the type of meditative technique that I do and the breathing I do, that develops the nervous system. And that's what the reptilian brain is very much connected to, the nervous system.
Yes.
And so you master that nervous system, you can master the reptilian brain, get that kind of control, that coolness, that relaxation, where you're not going to go into panic so readily, because your nerves can stay cool in a crisis, and then you can make an evaluation really quickly, and then you can decide what's the reasonable thing to do rather than do something in panic.
Yes, I agree. And sometimes people say, oh, my body just, I'm fine, and my body just started going in a panic. Well, those are the moments where you get the control of your breathing, and then you take control of your mind and that reptilian brain and balance that logic with the emotion, and then your body will follow suit.
You pretty well have to train yourself ahead of time to get that, to be able to stop a panic attack. But the thing is, anxiety, which a lot of times comes before the panic attack, if you get real good at whenever you pick up the anxiety, you do the breathing technique
right away,
immediately
when it starts coming on,
before you hyperventilate, before you react,
before you even think of why it's happening. Just start your breathing,
because that's what I've been doing all my life. That's why I'm so good at dealing with anxiety without going into a panic. It's because I just immediately respond to it. I don't let it build up or anything.
Yes, you have to attack it right at the moment it starts to invade your body.
So you have to be quick to respond to things,
and be
you
aware
have to.
of it.
So that's where the training comes in.
And be brave, and don't think that something bad's happening. No, your body is going into what it normally is used to because if you're stressed, or your body gets used to those types of habits. So in the same sense of breaking habits, you have to positively break the habits of your body, going into its natural fight or flight.
And create better habits, new habits, better ways of responding.
Yes.
So, I mean, we're a very innovative, I'm a very innovative spiritual person. You could say that I was I'm a DES baby, a son of a person that was given DES to avoid miscarriage, something that never worked in that area. So I have some of the symptoms as a result of that. So that makes me a little bit critical towards science, because I'm sort of like a science experiment to some degree. And you don't know how much of a degree it is, because the varying responses that people have to these drugs can be considerably different, and I may have been vulnerable in some ways. But then, science creates an experiment like me, then I'm able to utilize the experiment, and that's what, creates a unique individual like me, even though I don't think that's necessarily, you get Frankenstein monsters sometimes when science does crazy things.
Yeah, but like Tom always says, science have been put so much efforts into science. It's a lot stable and built more than the spiritual field. So we just need to catch up the spiritual field.
Yeah, that's right.
Science.
That's right. We need the spiritual maturity to deal with this highly technological age we live in.
We can see so many of the blendings once the spiritual gets caught up with science.
Because it hasn't advanced, because it's so locked into the past, where science is always trying to develop new stuff, whereas most of the spiritual, it's just locked in and saying, this is the way it is. There's autocratic source from somewhere else, from the past, is telling us this is the way it is. And what I'm saying is, you have to use trial and error, and you have to experiment, and you have to figure out the way it really is, and you have to use science and all knowledge we have today, in the fact that we have a printing
press. You have to use the tools that we have available.
And the fact that we have printing presses and the internet and all kinds of things they didn't have way back in the past, where a lot of people are still stuck spiritually in their beliefs. We have amazing resources, so we can evolve our spiritual theories. I use the word theory rather than belief, because theories can always be evolved further.
Great. Yeah,
they can always get better.
And another thing that's really important in the spiritual development is critical thinking. I think that when we're talking about the reptilian brain and all the parts of the brain, critical thinking, common sense and critical thinking are so important in the spiritual gut intuition trusting building, because of the fact that you have to look at things logically. You have to pick it out. You have to research. You have to investigate. And that requires you to critically think and be okay with people bringing in things that are critical as well, and not be offended by it, because we want to learn. So people bring in an idea or a thought, instead of getting offensive of oh my gosh,
let's explore
open your mind and let's explore it. Exactly, let's explore it. Let's see if it actually
will connect us better to reality.
Yes.
Will it make us more effective in this physical world we're in right now? In other words, what else counts to me than making a difference in the world we're in right now?
Right.
If we can make a positive difference in it right now, it will help our future. It will make us more capable of handling whatever's going to come in our future. Because the now is the reality that counts the most, and which tests us spiritually where we're at.
Yes.
Into anything that takes us away from this physical reality, because whenever anything takes us away from it, we're less effective here. And we need to be the most effective here, because this physical reality one right now has so many serious problems.
Yes,
so
and spiritually it needs to, heal the inner child of the earth, even, just
so we really have to be focused on this physical reality and making a difference here. And don't worry about your future spiritually, because if you do good in the present, the future will take care of itself.
Always. When you're doing the right thing, you always get blessed. It's logic. When you walk through something and you're doing the right thing, you get blessed. every single time you look back in your life and see that when you're on the right track and you're doing everything you can and you're 100%, there's so many ancient texts even that confirm that when you're on the right track, you're doing the right thing, you're doing everything that you need to do, boom, you are given the blessings and things that you need to continue forward. You are able to get those tools available to you by the universe, however it may be, through somebody else, because that's usually how it works. Because as we're connected with everyone else, you hear the saying, it's who you know. And that's because we're unity and we're community, and we should be able to have everyone support everyone else in unity for the greater good of themselves and others.
Yeah, this is Positive Vibes Enterprise, and that's what we're all about.
Yes.
We're all about trying to make a positive difference in this world, bringing people together. And I may have developed a lot of things on my own, but I can do so much more with the cooperation of others. A lot of times things have to get started by somebody alone because it's so hard to develop something when you have so many other people's energies involved and so many thoughts and ideas come from every direction. The focus of one sometimes is necessary to get started, but at a certain point, it can go so much further once you get the teamwork going.
Right.
Anything can go further once you get more people involved. If one person may get the ball rolling, but it'll go a lot further, and it can do amazing things way beyond what the creator developed once the other people get involved. Okay, Positive Vibes Enterprise. We appreciate you watching.
Yes, please subscribe and share, and we'll see you next time.
And we want more viewership, because 10 or 15 people just doesn't do it. And
share. Let's get it out.
We have to break through the collective mindset that's locked in, that doesn't allow new ideas to get through.
Tell us what you feel. Tell us what you think.
And become part of the movement. Become one of the forerunners in this movement with us. Because we need that. Because it's very hard to get something new going. But I'm doing as much as I possibly can. Michelle's trying to do as much as she possibly can, and we need more people to do that. Thank you very much.
Bye.